Walk into any deer camp or hunting lodge, and you can often tell who's experienced and who's new just by looking at their rifle. There's nothing wrong with being a beginner. Everyone starts somewhere. But some rifles have a reputation for looking beginner, while others give off a serious, experienced hunter vibe. Today, we're breaking down 5 rifles that scream, "I just started hunting," and 5 that scream, "I've been doing this for years." Let's get into it. 5 rifles that scream, beginner. 5. Any rifle in 300 Win Mag, bought for whitetail deer. This is less about a specific model and more about a specific mistake, and it's one of the most common ones in the sport. A new hunter walks into a store, hears Magnum, and assumes bigger number means more capable, more serious, more of a real hunter's cartridge, and walks out with a 300 Win Mag for a hunt that a 308 or a 6.5 Creedmoor would handle with less recoil, less meat damage, and honestly better shot placement because the hunter isn't flinching in anticipation of the kick. Experienced hunters clock this immediately because most whitetail hunting happens well inside the range where a Magnum cartridge's advantages actually matter. What they see instead is punishing recoil that trains a new shooter to develop a flinch, which then makes every single shot afterward worse. It's not that the caliber is bad, it's that it's the wrong tool bought for the wrong reason, and it actively works against the new hunter's development. 4. Heavily tactical-styled bolt guns with unnecessary rails and attachments. Picatinny rail running the entire length of the forend. Bipod, 3 or 4 accessory mounting points. A stock that looks like it belongs on a competition rig. None of it is wrong on its own. Plenty of that gear has a genuine purpose in the right context. But when it shows up on someone's very first deer rifle, headed into a tree and/or a ground blind for a hunt that requires exactly 1 clean shot inside 200 yards, experienced hunters read it as someone who bought the aesthetic of serious shooter before they bought the actual experience. A bipod is dead weight climbing into a tree, and extra rail sections are just extra weight and extra snag points on brush. The gear is solving problems the hunter doesn't have yet. 3. Ultra-budget combo package rifles with the included cheap scope. You know the package. Rifle and scope bundled together at the lowest possible price point, sold as a complete, everything you need, beginner kit. The rifle itself is often perfectly serviceable. The scope bundled with it, in a huge number of cases, is the actual problem. Poor glass clarity, unreliable zero retention, turrets that don't track consistently when adjusted. Experienced hunters have almost universally been burned by exactly this combo once, early on, and immediately upgraded the glass while keeping the rifle. Seeing someone show up with the stock combo scope still mounted is one of the clearest beginner tells there is, because it signals the hunter hasn't yet had the experience of losing an animal or missing a clean shot because the optic let them down. An experience that changes buying habits permanently once it happens. 2. Any rifle bought purely because of what a YouTuber or influencer was using. This one's a little uncomfortable to include, given the channel we're on, but it needs to be said. There's a specific pattern where a new hunter sees a popular hunting personality using a specific rifle and buys that exact model and caliber without ever asking whether it actually fits their build, their local terrain, their typical shot distances, or their recoil tolerance. Experienced hunters can usually spot this because the rifle doesn't match anything else about the hunter's setup. Wrong caliber for the region's typical game and terrain. A stock length that doesn't fit their frame. A rifle clearly weighted toward long-range western hunting, showing up on an eastern whitetail hunt in dense woods. It's not that the rifle is bad. It's that it was chosen for someone else's hunt, not theirs. 1. Over-accessorized AR platform hunting rifles with every add-on possible. AR platform rifles are legitimate, capable hunting tools in the right calibers and the right hands. This isn't an AR bashing entry. Chambered correctly for the game and terrain, they're accurate, reliable, and every bit as real a hunting rifle as a bolt gun with a walnut stock. The issue is the tendency to load one up with every conceivable accessory before ever taking it into the field. The stock cranked to max length because it looks tactical, an oversized muzzle device that adds weight without adding function, a $500 optic on a rifle never zeroed past 100 yards, an angled foregrip that photographs well but rarely earns its keep, and enough rail space to mount a laser, a light, a bipod, and other attachments that serve no real hunting purpose. This is the #1 tell among experienced hunters, the clearest sign of enthusiasm outpacing understanding, of someone who's spent more time browsing accessory catalogs than carrying a rifle through the field. It's an easy trap to fall into. The platform is modular, accessories are easy to bolt on, and building a rifle that looks capable feels satisfying. But looking capable and being field-ready are two different things, and the gap usually shows up the first time that rifle gets carried more than a mile from the truck. Every experienced AR hunter I've come across eventually arrives at the same place, a stripped-down, purpose-built setup with only what earns its place on the rifle. That's not an accident. It's a lesson learned the hard way, because every accessory is weight you're carrying for miles, and weight you don't need is the first thing that gets stripped off once a rifle's seen real hunting miles, instead of just range time. A rifle that feels reasonable off a bench starts to feel very different after hours of still hunting through timber. That's when the foregrip comes off, the oversized muzzle device gets swapped for something lighter, and the stock gets set to fit the hunter, not the parking lot photo. Field experience edits a rifle down to its essentials, and that editing is what separates a hunting rifle from a range rifle wearing a hunting rifle's clothes. 5 rifles that scream experience. 5. A well-worn Remington 700 in .30-06 with 0 add-ons. Scratched stock. Worn bluing. A basic 3.9 scope that's been on there for a decade. No rail system, no bipod, nothing tactical about it at all. This is one of the most instantly recognizable, this person knows exactly what they're doing, rifles in North America. Precisely because of what it doesn't have. The Duin 30-06 is one of the most versatile, well-proven cartridges in hunting history, capable of ethically taking nearly anything in North America with the right bullet selection. An experienced hunter doesn't need a rail system because they're not attaching anything new. They found what works decades ago and never needed to change it. The wear on the stock isn't neglect, it's mileage. And mileage is the most honest credential in this sport. 4. A lever-action rifle in .30-30 for woods hunting. Lever guns get dismissed by newer hunters as old-fashioned, and that dismissal is exactly why seeing one in the field reads as deep experience, rather than the opposite. For dense woods hunting, thick brush, short shot distances, quick target acquisition needed, a lever action. .30-30 is, in the opinion of a lot of veteran woods hunters, genuinely still one of the best tools for the job. Fast follow-up shots, compact length for maneuvering through brush, and flat, reliable performance at the ranges most woods hunting actually happens at. An experienced hunter carrying one isn't behind the times. They've hunted enough seasons to know that a scoped long-range bolt gun is often the wrong tool entirely for tight cover, and they've stopped caring whether the choice looks modern. 3. A rifle matched to the game and terrain. This is less about one specific rifle, and more about the choices behind it. Experienced hunters usually choose their setup based on where they hunt, what they hunt, and the conditions they actually face. Not because something is trending online, not because a YouTuber said it's the best, and definitely not because it looks impressive. Their setup has a reason behind it. Maybe they spend most of their time hunting in thick woods, where different equipment makes more sense. Maybe they're hunting open country where longer distances are more common. Maybe they're focused on one particular type of game year after year. Whatever the case, there's usually a clear connection between the rifle and the environment. And that's the giveaway. Ask an experienced hunter why they chose their particular setup, and you usually won't get some complicated answer. They'll tell you about the terrain, the game, the conditions, the distances they normally encounter, the kind of hunting they actually do. It's practical, specific, and usually pretty boring. That's exactly what makes it convincing. There's no, "I saw this online and had to have it," energy. They didn't choose a rifle because it was popular. They matched the tool to the job. 2. A rifle with expensive glass. This one often surprises newer hunters. They naturally assume the rifle itself should be the most expensive part of the setup. But experienced hunters tend to look at the entire system differently. They understand that the optic is a huge part of the equation. A rifle can be perfectly capable, but if the glass isn't up to the conditions, the expensive rifle underneath it doesn't suddenly solve the problem. That's why you sometimes see something interesting at hunting camp. A relatively modest-looking rifle paired with a noticeably high-quality optic. And that combination can say a lot. The owner clearly isn't trying to make the rifle look impressive. They're spending money where they believe it actually matters. Maybe that's because they've hunted during early mornings when visibility changes quickly. Maybe they've experienced difficult conditions where clear glass becomes especially valuable. Or maybe they've simply learned through years of hunting that expensive equipment isn't automatically useful equipment. The beginner often thinks, "What's the best rifle I can buy?" The experienced hunter is more likely to think, "Where will my money actually make a difference?" That difference in thinking is the real giveaway. Because eventually, experience changes what you value. You stop caring about what looks impressive in the gun store. You start caring about what makes sense for the way you actually hunt. And seeing a simple rifle paired with excellent glass is one of the clearest examples of that mindset. 1. A rifle that's been personalized over time. And finally, number 1. This is probably the strongest experience signal on the entire list. A rifle that has clearly been personalized over years of use. Maybe it has been fitted with a different stock. Maybe the owner changed certain components after years of experience. Maybe the rifle has been refinished, rebuilt, or simply adjusted to suit the person who uses it. The important part isn't the modification itself. It's the story behind it. Because someone who has spent years with the same rifle eventually learns exactly what they like. They learn what feels right. They learn what doesn't. They discover which features actually matter to them, and which ones were nothing more than marketing hype. And over time, the rifle starts becoming less like something they bought, and more like something they built around their own experience. That's something you can't really get from walking into a store and buying the most expensive rifle on the shelf. It takes time. It takes use. And most importantly, it takes enough experience to know what you actually want to change. That's why a heavily personalized rifle can tell such an interesting story. Every change has a reason. Every adjustment represents something the owner learned along the way. And that's what separates it from a rifle covered in accessories simply because they looked cool. The experienced hunter isn't modifying the rifle to impress people standing around the truck. They're modifying it because they know exactly what they want. And that's probably the biggest difference between beginner gear and experienced gear. Beginners often buy what they think an experienced hunter should have. Experienced hunters usually end up with exactly what they need. So when you see a rifle that's clearly been refined over many years, don't just look at the rifle. Look at the story behind it. Because you're not simply looking at someone's equipment. You're looking at years of experience, preferences, mistakes, lessons, and memories built into one rifle. If you're newer to hunting and you saw your own rifle somewhere on that first list, don't take it personally, and don't feel like you need to run out and replace anything. Every experienced hunter in this comment section started exactly where you are right now. The whole point of this video isn't to shame a starting point. It's to save you a few seasons of trial and error by showing you what the hunters who've already been through it actually gravitate toward once the trends and the marketing wear off.